we can work within time, inshallah. Without delaying, I want to humbly call on my younger brother, Muallim Mubarak Ahmed Abwaji, who is a circuit missionary in charge of Sawaba Circuit in Kumasi, in the Ashanti region. So please, if he's with us, he should kindly give us a recitation from a portion of the Holy Quran. Jazakumullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا واتبع سبيل من أناب إلي ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا بني إنها إن تك مثقال حبة من خردل فتكون في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله إن الله لطيف خبير. يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانهى عن المنكر واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور. ولا تصعر خدك للناس ولا تمنع إن الله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. واقصد في مشيك واغضض من صوتك إن أنكر الأصوات لصوت الحمير. Translation. And if they contend with thee to make thee set up equals with me, concerning which thou hast no knowledge, obey them not, but be a kind companion to them in all worldly affairs. and in spiritual matters, follow the way of him who turns to me. Then unto me will be your return, and I shall inform you of what you used to do. The weight of a grain of mustard seed, or in the heavens, or in the earth, Allah will surely bring it out. Verily, Allah is the knower of all subtleties, all aware. O my dear son, observe prayer and enjoin good and forbid evil, and endure patiently whatever may befall thee. Surely this is of those matters which require firm resolve. And turn not thy cheek away from men in pride, nor walk in the earth haughtily. Surely Allah loves not any arrogant boaster. And walk thou at a moderate pace, and lower thy voice. Verily, the most disagreeable of voices is the voice of the ass. This has been taken from Holy Quran chapter 31, Surah Al-Luqman, verses 16 to 20. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Malim Sir, Jazakumullah for the beautiful rendition of the Holy Quran you have given us. May Allah increase your knowledge. Amen.
Ameen.
We shall proceed to have an opening prayer, which will be led by our brother Molvi Ismail Frempong, who is the Aguna Zonal Missionary, and he is also serving the Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya as the Muhtamim Tarbiyat in charge of the southern sector. So if Molvi is with us, as he is far away in the, I believe, Northeast zone, doing public and joining us from there, we would be humbled that he leads us in this prayer. Jazakumullah.
Assalamu alaikum. Sadr Sab, I was asked to replace Movi Sab as he will not be available at the moment.
That is okay. You are very welcome, Molvi Salim Ahmed Kielsen. Jazakumullah.
Let's raise our hands and pray. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم اللهم آمين.
Amen. Jazakumullah, Molvi Salim Sab, for leading us in the opening prayer. We are privileged that Almighty Allah has afforded us this opportunity to meet once more to celebrate the Musleh-e-Maud Day. This is a frequent feature. However, it's only in recent times that, due to the challenges the New World Order, i.e. COVID, has brought upon us, we have learned to do this program virtually. It is an opportunity for us to have brothers from all over the country and beyond participating in this program. We had initially intended to hold it on the exact date of 20th February, which is the date for commemorating the Musleh-e-Maud Day. However, I was privileged to find out at the appropriate time that MTA Africa was having a live program for celebrating the same occasion. And I felt obliged to ensure that the members of the Majlis participated fully in that, as I would give preference to the MTA over our own program. Hence, we rescheduled it upon advice from the officers in charge of Tarbiyat to this weekend. And so if you notice, we are doing this program on a different date from the original date for commemorating this important day. This is the background to it. Be that as it may, however, I believe that all of us would agree that it will not take anything away from the blessings we shall all benefit from for participating in this program. We have a speaker. He is a gentleman. He is a very good friend, but a younger brother as well. We have had a lot of interaction for the past at least 10 years that I have known him. He is a learned gentleman by all standards. He is a Hafiz. He has memorized the Holy Quran. And he is also a Molvi, Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya, in Ghana. He is a lecturer at Jamia International. And so I needn't emphasize how lucky we are to have such a resource person to present to us on the topic of the importance of the Musleh-e-Maud. We will listen to him for the better part of half an hour or a little over. And he obviously would not be capable of giving us a total rundown of what he would have loved to do because of constraints of time. However, I'm confident he will give us a briefing of the topic of Musleh-e-Maud. I am not lost of the fact that many of us, including myself, have followed the presentation, first of all and most importantly, of our beloved Huzur Hazrat Masroor Ahmed Ayadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr Al-Azhir. And we listened to the sermon last 2 Fridays, and we learned a lot from it. We also listened to the MTA program. In fact, we viewed it and we learned a lot more from it. Many of us would have commemorated this program wherever we are, either at Juma or at separate programs organized. And so this will just be another opportunity to emphasize on the message that this celebration comes with. I am personally inspired by the story of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu. I'm inspired since the point at which I read his biography. At a point in time, I think perhaps almost 8 years ago-ish, I began to take interest in reading the biographies of Hazrat Masih-Maud alayhi salam, including all the Khulafa. And then I discovered the book entitled Fazl Umar. This is the book I borrowed from a brother called Abdul Wahab. You all know him. This is the book I've shown in the picture, in my video. This book gave me a lot of inspiration because I read about the personality of Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmed, the Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu. And after reading it, my life has not been the same. Reason being that beyond all the prophecies about him, which I was not aware then, I found out that he was a total human being. I read a lot of pages in the book that perhaps I would like to share with us, just 1 or 2 paragraphs, so that we may all understand where I'm coming from, where my inspiration came from. I quote the writer. His main objective was to maintain the community at the highest level of activity, both in terms of self-improvement and in respect of striving to spread the message of Islam. In this respect, the creation of the auxiliary organizations was a huge boost in fulfilling his objective. I'm quite certain you all by now would realize where I'm coming from. I am trying to create a nexus between the personality of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud anhu and the formation, existence of the Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya, which we belong to. I want to read another paragraph for us to see the purpose for the formation of Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya, which was the brainchild of this person, this blessed person, this personage who was a subject of revelations. It is said that the purpose, he stated the purpose of creating the auxiliary organizations. Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu himself explained the reasons behind this on different occasions. He said, and I quote, I think this book quotes him too. If the Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya organization becomes established everywhere, if the Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya organization becomes established everywhere, if the Ansarullah organization becomes established everywhere, and then the whole community becomes intertwined in such an organization, every individual becomes visible to the community. One can discover his competencies. I repeat that. One can discover his competencies and his level of interest in religious matters. In a way, we also obtain a census of the auxiliary organization. Note that members attended various gatherings of the community before this. However, there were no limitations incumbent upon the members, and neither was there any strictness about observing who was absent and the reasons behind their absence. However, as similar age groups have all been gathered together because of this scheme, they can watch over each other and they can also get work experience. Then the biggest advantage will be that in this way, from a tender age, the training of the children will be along the lines of Islamic teachings, which will come in handy when they are older. Apart from this, as everyone who is a part of this organization has to take on some responsibility, they will show their potential in some form or other. I repeat this sentence. Apart from this, as everyone who is a part of these organizations has to take on some responsibility, they will show their potential in some form or other. Hence, this is such an important task that if no attention is given to it, the community will never prosper as a group and will never be successful in the field of training. Gentlemen, I have just read a portion of the book Fazl Umar. I think it's page 345. And my intention is to create some interest in my brethren to follow up and read more about the personality of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu. I am so much inspired by what I have read about him. He is a person who captures all facets of life. Are they social? Are they political? Perhaps even geopolitical beyond your country? Are they talking about personal development? Are they talking about spirituality, most importantly? Spirituality, spiritual development. Every facet of life, you can find them in his writings. Are they talking about academic excellence? Or they are talking about how to build family relationships and family ties? Are they talking about how to build courage? Every aspect of life, he talks about it. Before I conclude, I'd like to take this paragraph as well. Advising men between the ages of 15 and 40 years of age, he stated, so this is strictly going to members of the Majlis, and I quote him, I am reminding Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya that they should set a high example that the threat of Islam is kept alive generation after generation. I repeat this sentence, very important. And I would invite us all to pay attention to this sentence. I am reminding Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya that they should set such a high example that the threat of Islam is kept alive generation after generation. Islam in itself is a complete faith. However, even the most favorsome Jews needs a glass. Similarly, the soul of Islam requires a glass in order to tread to it others. Our Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya are those glasses in which the spirit of Islam will be kept intact, and through them it will be passed on to others. This is the expectation of our beloved Huzur, Jalsa Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu, for members of Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya. He describes us, he characterizes us as the glass in which the spirit of Islam will be kept in order to make Islam beautiful so as to spread it to others. The question we should all ask ourselves is, are we able to live up to this expectation? I mentioned to us that he gave a lot of emphasis on spiritual development. It is not only spiritual development. He also gave emphasis to our personal development as individuals in society. So reminding them about hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice, he stated, and I quote, today, I am reminding the young men of the community that they ought to develop the habit of hard work and sacrifice. I repeat this, please. And I quote, today, I am reminding the young men of the community that they ought to develop the habit of hard work and sacrifice. And they must impress it upon their minds that a nation will never progress until its elites, as well as its common people, are in the habit of hard work and sacrifice. We are being invited to work very hard and to sacrifice enormously in our lives. He finishes by saying, in the world, difficulties and trials appear in many different shapes and forms, but the response to all of them can only be the same, and that is to overcome these difficulties with perseverance and courage. However, this spirit is only created when the youth respond accordingly after understanding their responsibilities. That is, the greater responsibilities, the harder the work, or they should work. Gentlemen, I will not belabor the point. I would conclude my opening remarks here by inviting you to pay rapt attention to the presentation Hafiz Molvi Hafiz Ibrahim is about to make to us. After his presentation, the officers in charge of Tarbiyat, both my younger brothers, very respectable and respectful ones, Molvi Nasim Nyame and Molvi Ismail K. Frempong of the northern and southern sector, northern and middle sector and southern sector respectively. I'm grateful for them putting together this program. Their supervisor, the Muawan Sadr, Jawad Saad, has been working hard on this too. And what we have put in place is such that after this meeting or after this discussion, we shall have a question and answer session for a little over half an hour for members to ask questions. And we shall endeavor, or should I say, the missionaries amongst us, the senior members, like Senior Ahmed Osu Konadu, who is present with us, shall endeavor to help us with some answers. After we are done with today's program, we have planned that we would administer immediately, and the link to the test will be posted on the chat page when the time is due. That is after the question and answer. Otherwise, people will simply ask those questions for us to answer them, and they will answer the tests. And so I want us all to pay rapt attention, put on our thinking caps. Obviously, the questions may go beyond the presentation that we will get, because this presentation is basically a summary and a selection of questions, and it cannot be exhaustive. Members are encouraged to take the test immediately after the program, or immediately the link is posted on the chat page, obviously before the end of the program, so that we can get some time. The link will further be posted on Majlis platforms, including WhatsApp, so that members will have up till 9 p.m. of today, this evening, to take the tests. I think it's on Google Forms. When you have submitted the tests, the one who records the highest mark, and when there are more than one of such high marks, the one who submitted his entry first shall be declared winner and shall be given an award during our national Majlis National Ijtima, inshallah, this year. We intend to institutionalize such celebrations and reward people who would score the highest marks in our tests, inshallah. And this is the program the Office of Tarbiyat is bringing to us, inshallah. At this moment, I will not speak further, but recline in my own seat and enjoy the presentation. My younger brother and the Hafiz movie will present to us, and then we'll get back to you, inshallah. So, Molvi Sahib, I hope I have not by any means said anything you had planned to say. In any case, there's a lot you would want to say. I would give the platform to you at this juncture, and you have, I think, by the program, the next 40 minutes to address your brothers, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Just before I proceed, I want to ask if my voice is audible enough.
It's clear.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khairan. Sir, you've rather given me a Herculean task by some of the praises you rained at me. And so
yes, you are.
I'm now, yes, I'm now under pressure to perform up to that task.
Yes.
But inshallah, may Allah make it fruitful.
Inshallah.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So I'll go straight to the point. The topic that has been given me to talk on is that, what is the life of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud? I'm just explaining. What is the life of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud, and what is there for us to learn, especially as members of the Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya?
MashaAllah.
Oftentimes we hear a lot. The story of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud is very common. However, it is still, there's so much within the story that any speech at all you lay hands on, if you combine all the speeches you found all around, they still do not do justice to the entire story. What I have tried to do today is relate the story of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu, but in a different way, through stories from his childhood, stories from when he was a khadim, tifl khadim, and I'll try to limit it there if time permits, because the later years of his khilafat, where he was a Nasir, member of the Ansarullah, and most of the things that happened, even though they're equally important, but I bet you time will not allow us to reach there. So at least we'll try to target his days of, Atfal and of Khuddam, just the few years of Khilafat. But the story of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu didn't start on the 12th of January 1889 when he was born. It started long before that. In fact, in 6th century BCE, we have prophecies from Hazrat Zoroaster, the founder of Zoroastrianism. We have prophecies in the literature of Zoroastrianism where prophecies are made. Mention is made about the coming of a prophet in Arabia. And after that prophet who will come in Arabia, there will be a Messiah later on who will have children and who will have a child who will inherit him as his Khalifa. You have prophecies, dating that much far back. But I'll start with the Prophet ﷺ, a prophecy he made about Musleh-e-Maud. And he says in the hadith is narrated in Mishkat, he says, يَنْزِلُ عِيسَى بْنُ مَرْيَمَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ يَتَزَوَّجُ وَيُولَدُ لَهُ. That Isa, son of Mary, will descend on the earth and he will marry and have children. Now, marrying and having children is no miracle. Anybody, even the kuffar, the most evil people, even Pharaoh, married and had children. So when the Prophet ﷺ says he will marry and have children, what exactly does it mean? The Prophet ﷺ in Aina Kamalat Islam explains what this means. He says, قد أخبر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن المسيح الموعود يتزوج ويولد له ففي هذا إشارة إلى أن الله يؤتيه ولدا صالحا يشابه أباه ولا يأباه ويكون من عباد الله المكرمين. That when the Prophet ﷺ says that the Jesus, son of Mary, will come on this earth and he will have children, he will marry and have children, it means that the kind of child he will have will be one obedient to the message that he brought, who is obedient to him and will not disobey him under any circumstance, and will be his masil, he will be his prototype. That means he will come and then continue in the footsteps of his father. That is the meaning of the hadith, that the Messiah, son of Mary, will have a child. Otherwise, anybody at all can have a child. وَيَكُونُ مِنْ عِبَادِ اللَّهِ الْمُكْرَمِينَ, and he will be among the servants of Allah who are most honorable. Then you find in the Talmud, in the books of the Jews, and this is from Moses, down to 400 years before Jesus alayhi wasalam. That is even farther than the one I mentioned about Zoroaster. And in the Talmud also, there's this book Talmud by Joseph Buckley. In this book, he has referred to an oral tradition that was common among the Bani Israel, among the Israelites, long before Jesus. And he said that according to that tradition, he said that when that Messiah comes, he will die and his children and grandchildren will inherit his kingdom. That Messiah, that was expected by the Jews. When he comes, he will die. And his children and grandchildren will inherit his kingdom. So we again have a prophecy from among the books of the Jews. Then we come to the books of Zoroastrians. And in a book that is translated, the book is originally, this prophecy was originally made in the Western language, the language that Zoroaster spoke, but it's been translated into Farsi, into Persian. And the prophecy says that, and I'll quote that too, it says, Chun hazar sal tazi aaye, ra guzard chuna shud aaye az judai ha, ke agar bain garnumaynd nadandash dar oftar dirham wa kunand khak parasti. And then it says parasti wa darguzar bardar judai wa dushmani dar aha afzun shud pashumaya bid khubi ra garmanid yakdam az hame kharj angezam az kisani tu wake wa aye wa ab tubatu sanam wa paygambari wa peshwani az farzandani tu bar nagiram. It took me a lot of effort to read that, but I'll translate. It means that Zoroaster said that that a time will come and there will be a prophet from among the Arabs, and after that prophet among the Arabs comes and he dies, after 1,000 years after his death, there will be another prophet who will be raised among you people. He was addressing the Iranians, the Persians. Originally, the Prophet is from Persia. His forefathers migrated from there and then came and settled in Qadian in India, and later he was born. So he's addressing these Persians. He says, from among you, your progeny, there will be somebody who will come following the religion and teachings of that Arab prophet, more than 1,000 years after the Arab prophet. And he says, but after during that time, when that person, that reformer comes in the ummah of the Arab prophet, the state of the religion of that Arab prophet would have deteriorated to the extent that if it were presented to that Arab prophet himself, he wouldn't recognize it. That would be the state of the religion of that Arab prophet. And then the second part of the prophecy that I read says that when that happens, God will raise somebody from his progeny, from the progeny of this Persian raised in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, who he will raise prophethood, and then he will raise khilafat after the prophethood among the progeny of this Persian prophet. So clearly, again, we have a prophecy long before Islam talking about Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu, a son of the promised Messiah who will come to reform Islam. But that is not all. Even among the Muslim saints, before the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there is a very popular Muslim saint who was also an Iranian who came around Iran, Afghanistan. His name was Hazrat Shah Ni'matullah Sahib, rahimahullah. He wrote a poem that Allah had revealed to him about the coming of a Messiah in Islam, where he will appear, what his name will be, and he said about his name in his poem that Alif Ha Mim Wadal Me Khanam Nam Ana Mudar Me Binam. That the name of this Messiah will be Alif Ha Mim Dal, Ahmad. That will be the name of this Messiah. And he says, Dore Unchun Shud Tamam Bakam Parashiyadgar Me Binam. After he has completed the assignment Allah would have given him, he will have his progeny who will inherit him and continue with his work. So again, we have a prophecy even among the known scholars, saints who came between the Prophet ﷺ and Hazrat Masih-Maud alayhi salam. So the story of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud starts that much far. And so the promised Messiah alayhi salam, when he was appointed by Allah the Almighty as the Mujaddid, then ultimately as the Imam Mahdi and then Masih-Maud, he prayed to Allah, and in a vision he met some of the past prophets. That's the background of the prophecy. He met some of the past prophets who advised him that it was the sunnah of all prophets that they would take some time and go into seclusion and then pray to Allah. Moses did it. The Quran mentions it. Moses, going to the mount for 40 days and then 40 nights and praying to Allah, and he was given the 10 commandments and so on and so forth. The Prophet ﷺ did it. He used to go to the cave Hira and he will meditate even before prophethood. So it is the sunnah of the prophets. And so he met some of these past prophets in his visions and dreams who told him that you should also take that step. And also because of the opposition that Islam faced during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he decided to go into seclusion at a village called Hoshiarpur and pray to Allah to come to the aid of Islam. It was under these circumstances, during this Chillakashi, that Allah revealed to him, and he was there for about 40 days. Allah revealed to him that you have asked me for your favors, for my favors, and I will grant you these favors. The prophecy is very popular. I will not, spend so much time going through the whole thing. But among the favors I am bestowing you, O my beloved servant, is that I will give you a son in accordance to these prophecies of past. And this son will have numerous qualities. He will have 52 qualities. The 52 qualities are enumerated in the literature of the Jamaat. Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud himself, in a book called Al-Ma'ud, has written, numbered each of these 52 prophecies, signs of the prophecy, and has explained how they are all fulfilled in him, without any doubt. But we can't go into those details now. So he was given 52 signs in a prophecy that will be found in this promised son, Al-Musleh-e-Maud, the promised reformer. It's interesting here that the Prophet was 52 years when he went for this Shilakashi. At the time of this promise that Allah gave him, he was 52 years. The prophecy embodied 52 signs. And the Khilafat of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud lasted 52 years. That is just a coincidence. But perhaps in that, there is wisdom for those who are able to derive wisdom from that. So this child was also promised to be born within 9 years. Within 9 years, this child will be born. That was what Allah had told the Prophet ﷺ. Then he came back to Qadian. At this point, the Hazrat Ammajan, the wife of Hazrat Prophet ﷺ, radiallahu anha, was already pregnant at the time this prophecy came. And so just within 2-3 months, she delivered, and it was a girl called Ismat. But she died immediately. She died within a few days or weeks. And so the opponents started making mockery, because Huzur had published this prophecy on the 20th of February 1886, that this is what Allah has told me, that within this period I will have this promised son. But it turned out to be a girl. That itself was occasion for mockery by these opponents. Then she died on top of that. So the uproar, the mockery was too much from among Muslim opponents and non-Muslim opponents. Shortly after that, Hazrat Ammajan again was pregnant, and then had a boy this time. For a while, everybody was silent. The boy was named Bashir, because the prophecy also said that the child will be named Emmanuel, he will be named Bashir, and so on and so forth. But Bashir too didn't last. He died within a few months. Then again, the mockery started. He said he will have a child, a son, promised son, who will have these qualities. And he couldn't even live a year. He's dead. So the Prophet answered, I never did I for once say that this child, Bashir Awal, is the promised son. I didn't say that. Rather, the prophecy actually mentioned that I will have a son before the promised son who will die, because it says, Khubsurat Pak Larka Tumhara Mehman Aata Hai, in the prophecy, that a beautiful boy will come to you as a guest, before mentioning these qualities in Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud. So it was actually part of the prophecy that one will come who will die as well. It was after the death that this was understood, because if he's coming as a guest, he's not coming to stay forever. So that was actually part of the prophecy. Then 3 years later, Allah didn't allow the opponents to enjoy enjoy the mockery for long. Within 3 years, Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud was born, and he was named Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad. So now the child is born. Let me just add here quickly that within that period of 9 years, 2 other children were also born. Within this period of 9 years, 2 other sons were also born. So the opportunity for the opponents to mock at the promised Messiah or at this prophecy was completely eradicated, because you now have 3 children within these 9 years, and each of them could turn out to be Musleh-e-Maud. So they were shamed within this 9 years. So on the 12th of January 1989, on a Friday night, Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anh was born. And shortly after he was born, something happened. Hazrat Amajan radiallahu anha narrates that when she was pregnant, when she was about to deliver, she had a dream. And in the dream, she saw herself being married to Nizamuddin. Nizamuddin was a fierce opponent, a great enemy of the Jamaat, of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad alayhi salatu wasalam. So she was so worried, and she couldn't even mention to Hazrat Huzur. But Huzur noticed that she wasn't happy and approached her. What is the problem with you? You seem unhappy these days. And ultimately, she gathered the courage and then told Huzur that I had this dream, and that is why I'm worried. I was even scared to mention that to you, because this is your opponent, and I am married. I'm getting married to him. What does that mean? Huzur smiled and said that the dream means that a boy will be born. The dream means that a boy will be born, and that boy, he said, reflect on the name Nizamuddin. Nizamuddin means somebody who establishes faith. Somebody who, we use the word Nizam for the auxiliary, for the institution of the Jamaat, the administrative system of the Jamaat. And you notice that the administrative system of the Jamaat was largely, over 90%, established by Huzur. So there was a prophecy in that dream too, that this child will be Nizam of the faith of Islam. He will be somebody who will establish the faith, organize the faith, and so on. So Huzur said, this means that you're going to give birth to a boy. That was by the way. Now, his childhood, Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anh, right from a very young age, started showing signs that he will be a great child. He will be a reformer of the faith of Islam. And these signs made it clear that this child will grow to be the Muslim Maud. However, the Prophet never clearly made a pronouncement, nor did he allow for it to be said that this child will be the Muslim Maud. But the way he treated him, the way he gave him tarbiyat, all indicates that Hazrat Masih Maud was quite convinced that this boy will be the Muslim Maud. And like I said, I'll narrate some incidents. From his childhood, Hazrat Abdul Karim Saab Sialkoti says that once Huzur traveled to Ludhiana for some engagement. And that time, Mir Mahmud was just a child of around 3 years. And at night, he started crying late into the night, crying so loudly that Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam had to bring him out, try to console him, perhaps because the weather was hot. It was during summer, and the weather was hot, so he kept crying. And Hazrat Masih Maud tried all efforts to console him, but couldn't. And Hazrat Abdul Karim Saab was watching from a distance, perhaps because of the fact that he could not invade the privacy of Hazrat Masih Maud and his family. It was inappropriate. So he was helpless. He was just watching from far. And he said, for long hours, this was happening until Huzur, pointed to the stars and said, look at how beautiful the stars are, telling the child. And suddenly, Mir Mahmud's cry changed. He didn't stop crying, but he changed and started saying, Abba Tari Jana, Abba Tari Jana, crying with that. Said, Father, I want to go to the stars. Take me to the stars. I'm not keeping quiet until you take me to the stars. And Mawla Abdul Karim Sahib says that it was a child's cry, but this in itself was also a kind of, it was as if the child understood his mission, that religiously speaking, spiritually speaking, his limit would be the stars. He would go beyond the stars. This the child realized even as a child. I'll narrate another story that is also written by Maulvi Abdul Karim Saab. It says, when Mir Mahmud was just about 4 years old, once Huzur was writing a book, a very important book. In fact, all his books were important. And Huzur, as he was writing the books, he would write them on sheets of paper, put them aside. When he completes one sheet, he puts it aside and take another one. writing with the stick and ink. Put the stick in the ink and then start writing. That was before typewriting. And so Huzur was writing a book and had written most parts of the book already. These papers were put aside, and so the papers were aside, and Huzur continued writing some other sheets. Then suddenly, Mia Mahmoud entered the room where Huzur was writing, and he came alongside some other children of his age, and they were playing. Huzur didn't give them any attention. Mia Mahmoud also came inside holding a matchstick in his hand. So he played with his colleagues, and at a point, he turned towards the papers Huzur was writing and set them on fire. When he set them on fire, even then Huzur didn't realize, because he was so engrossed in the work he was doing in the writing, the book he was writing. So he didn't realize until all these papers burnt to ashes. Then at a point, he needed to refer to a point he had made in the earlier sheets when everything had turned to ashes. He asked, how that happened, and nobody was there. It was just these children and Huzur, alayhi salatu wasalam. He turned and asked what had happened, and the older ones among these children explained that this is what happened. Mia Mahmoud brought out the matches and set them on fire and then started clapping. But Huzur didn't realize any of these. The entire house of the Prophet Messiah, the mothers of these children, and Mia Mahmoud's mother herself became so worried that Huzur had spent sleepless nights, days, to put this book together, and Mia Mahmoud has set them on fire. What would happen? Huzur is very angry right now, and we do not know what he will say. But Huzur came out and said, is that khoob hua? Isme Allah Ta'ala ki koi bari muslihat hogi. Aur ab Khuda Ta'ala chahta hai कि इससे बेहतर मजमून हमें समझाए. Said, well, that's fine. Maybe Allah has some good intention in that. Allah has some secret, wisdom behind this. And it's perhaps that Allah, the Almighty, wishes to teach me some new subject that is better than the one I had written. That's the response he gave to this. Now, this incident explains how Hazrat Promised Messiah Hazrat Masih was gentle with his children. But why am I narrating it here relative to Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud? That is because the tarbiyyat that Huzur had given him itself formed part of who he became in the future. And as members of the Majlis, at a stage when we too are having our children, it's important that on an occasion like this, we learn from some of the examples in how Hazrat Masih-e-Maud treated his children. But that is not to suggest that Hazrat Masih-e-Maud pampered his children, over-pampered Mia Mahmoud. That is not so at all. You see, sometimes the Hazrat Masih-e-Maud's method of tarbiyyat was that if it is a matter that relates to the honor of faith, that relates to the moral upbringing of the child, he was strict. But if it was a matter related to he himself, or it was some stubborn attitude that could be overlooked, and that didn't have any effect on the moral upbringing of the child or on the honor of Islam, he didn't mind. And I'll narrate another example to illustrate this. Hazrat Mia Mahmoud Sahab himself, Hazrat Mirza Mahmoud, Bashiruddin Mahmoud Sahab narrates that I was just about 8 years old when once a dog approached our house and came close to our gate, and I saw it. So I came out and then started signaling at the dog and calling it, Tipu, Tipu. The word Tipu, the Tipu was a Muslim ruler of a kingdom in India, just close to the time of the Prophet, the kingdom of Mysore. of South India, and he was a Muslim. And he had quite a tough time with the British when they came to that area of India. And so the British named their dogs after this man, this ruler, Tipu, because he gave them a very hard time. So they named their dogs after him. Now, Hazrat Mia Mahmud Saab saw the dog and started calling him using the same word the British used to call their dogs. Said Tipu, Tipu, Tipu. And when Hazrat Masih-e-Maud heard this from inside the house, he came out rushing, angrily. He said to me, Sharam nahi aati? Are you not ashamed that you are referring to a dog with the name of a Muslim? You are using the same name the British used to refer to their dogs out of town, to the name of a Muslim. And this person, Tipu Sultan Fateh Ali Saab, was just a Muslim. The only relation he shared with the Prophet ﷺ was that both were Muslims. He is not known to have done something that aided in the propagation of the faith of Islam. But just because he was a Muslim, and his name was used wrongly, he did not allow that Mia Mahmud Saab use his name in the same way that the British use his name. And so you will begin to marvel that on the one hand, a child who burns an entire book, Huzur, smiles about that. And on the other hand, a small matter like calling a dog Tipu, Huzur is extremely angry and had to rush out of his room to correct that mistake. So let me narrate another incident here. Huzur says that once on a Friday, Mia Mahmud Saab is narrating that on a Friday, he failed to attend Jummah. And what happened was that Huzur himself, that Masih-e-Maud himself, was ill and bedridden. He couldn't go for Jummah. And so he asked him, however, to get ready and then go for Jummah. That Jummah was led by Hazrat Abdul Karim Saab Sialkoti. So Huzur left for Jummah, Mia Mahmud Saab left for Jummah, and on his way to the mosque, he met a man returning from the mosque. And the man told him that the mosque was full. There was no space. So even if you go, you won't get space. So he just believed the man's word and then returned home. When he came home, Huzur saw him and said, "Didn't you go for Jummah? Why are you home?" And said, "Huzur, the mosque is full." Now he didn't narrate the entire incident. He just said, "Huzur, the mosque is full." He didn't tell Huzur that I was actually going and I met a man who gave me the story. He didn't give that part of the story, assuming that Huzur would just accept that excuse. Well, Huzur accepted it, calmed down. Then after Jummah, Huzur sent for Hazrat Abdul Karim Saab and asked him, were there a lot of people in the mosque? Was the mosque full? Mia Mahmud Saab says that at this point, when Huzur was asking Maulvi Abdul Karim Saab, said, my heart was burning. I was scared that if it should be that the mosque was not really full, what would happen to me for telling a lie to Huzur? I cannot explain now that I didn't actually read the mosque. Somebody else told me the story. Huzur will not accept such an excuse, and I'll be seen as a liar. However, he said, I was lucky Allah saved me. And Maulvi Saab said that the mosque was really full. He said, I don't know the reason why today people came that much. And the mosque was full. There was absolutely no space. And that is how Allah saved him. But he said, I learned from this incident never to say something I am not sure about. He was only about 8 or 9 years old at that time. But he learned the lesson never to say something he had doubt. And I believe the lesson from that is clear for us to learn. Then there's another incident about still talking about his childhood. Huzur, Sayyid Fazl Shah, a companion of the Prophet, says that once Huzur alayhi salatu wasalam, I keep using the word Huzur for all the Khulafa, I think I should make it clearer now. Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud will be referred henceforth to as Mia Mahmud as long as he remains a child. And the Promised Messiah will be referred to as Promised Messiah or Masih Maud. I think that's clearer. So this companion called Sayyid Fazl Shah says that once Hazrat Imam Mahdi, the Promised Messiah alayhi salam, was resting in his room. And the companions used to do this. When Huzur is, when Promised Messiah is resting, they go close to him and they try to massage his feet just to give him some sort of comfort. And by that, derive some blessing from Allah the Almighty. So Promised Messiah was resting, and two companions, one was Sayyid Fazl Shah, who is narrating this incident, and some other companion were there massaging his feet. Suddenly, the other companion noticed that there were some hard objects in the pocket of Huzur's coat. And so he signaled Sayyid Fazl Shah Sahab. So there's something hard there. And Sayyid Fazl Shah Sahab put in his hand and removed it. Now in that interim, Huzur woke up. He was having a nap earlier. When he removed these things from his pocket, Huzur woke up. What were these things in his pocket? It was a broken piece of a pot, maybe made of clay, and some stones, some pebbles. So when he removed them, he decided to throw them away, dispose them off. Huzur said, no, don't do that. Put them back in my pocket. Mia Mahmud had given me these stones. And Huzur says that he must have given me these stones because he considered me as trustworthy. If you throw them away, what do I tell him if he comes, when he comes asking for them? So that incident, we've heard it, I believe, so many times, but anytime it's narrated, you wonder the kind of tarbiyat Huzur gave to his children. Munshi Zafar Ahmad Saab, who was another companion of the Prophet ﷺ, says that no, I think I made a mistake with the name Sayyid Fazl Shah. That was Munshi Zafar Saab. The incident of Sayyid Fazl Shah Saab is another one. That was about the Prophet ﷺ sitting down with him in his courtyard and eating some, what's the name of this fruit? There's a fruit called almonds that look like granules. So Huzur was sitting with this Sahabi, Sayyid Fazl Shah. The earlier one was Munshi Zafar Ahmad. And Sayyid Fazl Shah was cracking the nuts, the almonds, and they were eating. And at that time, Miansa was just a child, perhaps around 4 or 5 years old. He suddenly came there and took the entire plate of almonds, poured it into another bowl, and then he was about to leave. And Huzur said, he said to Sayyid Fazl Shah that, that Mia Mahmud is a very good boy. He will not take everything away. He will just take like 2 pieces and bring the rest back. The moment the child, just about 4-year-old boy, heard that, he indeed brought everything back, removed just 2 pieces, and left the rest. So we learn here also that Huzur used the method of saying good about the children. And once you have said something good about the child, he tries to live up to that expectation. You tell the child that you are a good boy. And on this occasion, you would act this way, in this good way. You will not act the wrong way. And the child learns that. So that, again, is a lesson for us to learn as members of the Majlis who are now passing through the stage of having children. Then, I'll stop with this series of incidents here and then mention another series of incidents. The earlier incidents were like incidents where the Promised Messiah alayhi salam is giving tarbiyah to Mia Mahmud. But tarbiyat is such that it cannot be done only one way. How a child learns to become a better person when he grows up is in 2 ways. One is through the lessons the child learns from the loved ones, the parents, the elder, siblings, and people around. Sometimes they are good lessons, sometimes they are bad lessons. If the child is smart enough, he's able to learn from the mistake of somebody. And that's what the hadith says. So these were the incidents narrated. How other people impacted in the moral upbringing of Mia Mahmoud Saab. But there's an aspect of moral upbringing of a child where the child himself has the ability to understand, ability to learn, to absorb these good morals, knowledge, and so on, and make sound judgment, and that makes that child a better child. Now, this quality is also very clearly noticed in the childhood of Hazrat Mia Mahmoud, radiallahu anhu. And the Quran mentions the same thing as well. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. This is the standard of righteous people, that they reflect on other things and they pick some lessons from that. Now, Mia Mahmoud himself narrates that as a child, I once heard that the Arya was a sect of Hinduism who believed that God is unable to create anything. What God does is that the soul already exists and the matter exists. So God, what he does is that he picks the soul and puts it inside the matter. But God neither created the soul nor the matter. This is their belief. They believe in reincarnation. So when you live on earth, depending on how your life was on earth, if you were a good person, you die, you are reincarnated as a better person. If you were a poor man, because of your good life in the previous life, you can be born as a king, for instance, as a rich man, for instance, in a better condition. But if you were a bad person in your previous life, you're born again as a worse person. You can even be born as an animal, as a pig, because your past life was bad. You can be born as a scorpion, as a hen, a fowl. Depending on your level of crime, your how do I say that? Your level of evil will commensurate with your state of birth in the next birth. I believe I was able to make that clear. So that was the belief among the Arya people. So Zu says, Mia Mahmoud Saab says, that when I heard this belief from the Arya Samaj, at that time again, Mia Mahmoud was below 10 years. He says, when I heard this, I couldn't accept such a weird belief. That cannot be possible. He said, so one night, I leaned by one of the walls of our house and looked towards the sky. And I kept looking at the stars and thinking, pondering, less than 10-year-old, pondering about the belief of Aryas. A 10-year-old, these are serious faith issues. But I said, I leaned against the wall. I kept looking at the stars and thinking that if what they are saying is true, when you look at the stars, what could possibly be beyond the stars? I said, I asked myself that question. I said, if the answer is that there is nothing beyond the stars, then the subject of space, as in space in geography, is impossible if there's nothing beyond the stars. A less than 10-year-old understanding the subject of space. The second thing he says, and if there is something beyond the stars, then what is beyond it? What resulted in it? And if there's something beyond that, what resulted in that thing? And he says, I kept thinking that series will continue. It will continue without an end. So that means that it is not possible that there is something that is not created by another thing. It's not possible that nobody created the soul, nobody created the body. God's job is just to put both together, and nobody created them. The concept of causes and effects, it has no end. There's always a cause of something, and there's a cause of that too. So it says it must have an ultimate end, and that ultimate end must be somebody whom human beings cannot understand. And so it's not possible that what the area people are saying is true. This was his level of understanding. That's why I say he himself had the ability, the capability to draw lessons from complicated issues, and that formed part of his tarbiyat. Another incident narrated by himself is that.
What's up? Alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I'm now extending your time by another 10 minutes, so you can proceed.
MashaAllah. Okay. Have I exhausted 40 minutes already?
You've exhausted it by a few minutes. So
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Okay. So in 10 minutes, I'll try to finish up. Another incident is that he says, I did not accept the Prophet Messiah because he was my father. Said instead, I made a solemn vow that if according to my research, he proved to be a false claimant, I would desert home. I'll leave the house. He says, but by my research, I realized that he was true, and my research only increased me in faith. Since the time is drawing closer, I will jump a lot of incidents, unfortunately, to his education and just mention one incident there and proceed. His education, one would expect that somebody who was born under such great prophecy with a lot of qualities, that he will be given special education, and his health will be one that is so good because he was meant to live long and so on and so forth. But in his childhood, his health was very bad. He suffered from 3 major sicknesses, and he was very poor in education as well. For example, he could not read because of his eyesight. He had an eye problem. That was one of the health problems. And he could not write also. His handwriting was extremely poor. It was so bad that he himself could hardly read it. That was the extent. So, but Prophet ﷺ didn't make any special effort to give him better education and to treat him extraordinarily. It was just a normal, usual kind of treatment that he was giving. He had blurred vision. He had a condition that looked like a cataract in the eyes, and he also suffered from an enlarged spleen condition, and also a frequent fever. These were the major sicknesses he suffered as a child. But Huzur didn't give that any special attention. And so the opponents, again, when they saw he was the elder among the 3 sons, they started making mockery at that child. That, this boy has been named Bashiruddin Mahmud, and he's not even good in class. He's that bad. So Huzur appointed the first Khalifa, that Khalifa Tulmasi al-Awwal, Maulana Hakim Nuruddin, for his teaching. And how did Maulana Hakim Nuruddin teach him? He taught him Quran and Hadith. How? Within about a month or 2, he recited the entire Holy Quran with its translation to him. And he said, no questions, just listen. Because your eyesight is no good, so do not make an effort to read. Just listen to me. That's how he was taught translation of the Quran. Within a month or 2, simple reading of the Quran and its translation, that was done. And within another 2-3 months, the entire Sahih Bukhari was read to him with its translation. And that was it. Basically, this was his education. But of course, he also had a bit of education where Maulvi Sher Ali taught him some basic English, and Pir Manzoor Muhammad also taught him some basic Urdu. So Pir Manzoor taught him some basic Urdu, Maulvi Sher Ali taught him a bit of some English. But there was another teacher who taught him a bit of math, Master Fakirullah Sahib. So there are some of these names that we come across in his education. Then let's jump to his writings, a bit of his writings. The writings and speeches of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud, you can only get to understand these things when you go through them. But I'll just say this, that those people who were eyewitnesses of the dars, the Quran classes that Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Ahmad delivered, especially when he was Khalifa, during Ramadan especially, said that the old men, were always in trouble when Huzur was giving his dars. they would be pressed to go and then visit the washroom, but they will not dare get up. So you see most of the old men holding their trousers, and pressing their legs together, because he doesn't want to get up, and Huzur will mention some fine point and he will miss that. So he really needs to use the washroom, but he will not get up. That was just to tell you the nature of his speeches and his writings. When he delivered his first speech after the death of the Prophet Muhammad during Jalsa, in just the year after Huzur died, the companions described this as the reincarnation of the Prophet Muhammad himself, because his voice was exactly like his father, and his manner of speaking was exactly like his father. And so everybody were in tears, feeling as if Huzur had just come back from death a few months back. His games and his sports. So Huzur took part in a number of games as a child, and some sporting activities as well. And among them were Huzur played cricket and a game called Kabaddi. Some of you, I believe, have seen that game before, wrestling in the Indian subcontinent. He also played a game called Miru Dabba. Jamia students know this well, or the missionaries, they know this game very well, Miru Dabba. And he also played Gulli Danda. That's also a game with sticks. Huzur also took part in swimming and sailing. And he went hunting as well as a young man. And he did horse riding as well. He actually had a horse that was given to his father as a gift and was then given to him. Rarely, though, but we find some incidents, some of them are narrated by he himself, that he also learned a bit of magic as a child. Huzur gave him, the Prophet allowed him to learn a bit of magic as a child as well. He married at the age of 13 in 1902 during the life of the Prophet Messiah. And when we say 13, sometimes we feel like it's too young. But, well, the nature of marriage among the Arabs as well, during the time of the Prophet in India, Pakistanis as well, is that they marry, but the marriage is not consummated immediately. Sometimes it takes some time. So when the age is mentioned very small, like it doesn't mean, the nikah was done on Friday, Saturday was walima. No, sometimes it takes years. So 13 wasn't that young. Then a very important aspect, and Sadr Saab, how many minutes do I have left?
Moza,
5 minutes?
You can take another 5 minutes, Moza.
Okay. So I want to just jump to his Khilafat. When the first Khalifa, Hazrat Maulvi Hakim Nuruddin, passed away, a fitna started. Actually, that fitna started even right after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, when a group of people, Sadr Anjuman is an office Prophet Muhammad created when he started the institution of Wasiyat for the administrative part of the Wasiyat scheme. And so when Huzur died, they thought that they were the rightful heirs to the tradition of the Prophet Messiah, not a Khalifa. So they opposed the first Khalifa, but when he summoned them, the first Khalifa was somebody who had a lot of robe, a lot of awe. So when they came in front of him, they couldn't say. And he said, he asked them to do bayat again. But when he died, and these people, even before the first Khalifa died, they circulated about a 21-page document that they titled Nihayat Zururi Elan, a very important announcement to all the missions in India of the Jamaat, telling them that actually the Prophet Muhammad had intended the Sadr Anjuman to head the Jamaat and not Khilafat. So when Huzur died, when the first Khalifa died, people gathered from far and wide for his janaza and all of that, and this fitna started. And so this is how ultimately Hazrat Mian Mahmud Saab became Khalifa. On the day that the first Khalifa died, on the 13th of March 1914, at night, he heard that this fitna was ongoing. So immediately he organized some others who prepared a leaflet. They couldn't spread it far and wide, but they tried to educate those who were in Qadian at the moment and made them understand that Khilafat must continue. And that was actually the will that the first Khalifa left behind, because he anticipated this fitna. So the next day, when they gathered the two groups, those who were proponents of Khilafat and the others who thought that the Sadr Anjuman should lead the Jamaat and not Khilafat, they gathered for a sort of debate. And during this occasion, one of the companions of the Prophet Messiah spoke on the importance of Khilafat. And everybody was convinced that Khilafat is the way forward. After speaking, he clearly said that I think wholeheartedly that we should elect Mia Mahmud as our next Khalifa. The entire crowd at once shouted that yes, we accept Mia Mahmud as our Khalifa and we are ready to lay down our life for him. And we do not agree with those people who say that Sadr Anjuman should lead the Jamaat. On this occasion, there are two prominent scholars of the Jamaat who were very knowledgeable, very learned, who were behind this trouble. One is Haji Kamaluddin, and the leader was Dr. Muhammad Ali Saab. On that occasion, when the masses all agreed to elect Mia Mahmud Saab as the Khalifa, Dr. Muhammad Ali tried to raise his hand to oppose that, to try to argue his point out. But another Sahabi also raised his hand to try to talk, and it became some sort of a argument between them. And before everybody realized, the masses were rushing towards Mia Mahmud Saab to take his bayat. And Huzur tried to avoid that. He tried as much as possible to avoid, and he even gave the excuse that, look, you want to take bayat in my hand, but I don't even know the words of bayat. And another Sahabi came and said, no problem. Even if you don't know the words of bayat, I will recite those words into your ear, and you will then recite them aloud, and the rest of us will repeat. This is how Allah saved the Jamaat from that fitna. However, these people who were mischief mongers, still, after the appointment, the election of Hazrat Bashuddin as Khalifa, second Khalifa, they went ahead and took all the property of the Jamaat, all the money in the coffers of the Jamaat and the leadership of the Jamaat, and left just 5 rupees. 5 rupees, I was just checking before this program started, that's just about 75 cedis. 75 cedis thereabouts were left in the coffers of the Jamaat. But also, the Jamaat was indebted of about 18,000 rupees. And this is what they left with the Jamaat. So the Jamaat had to start all afresh. Yet, Huzur was able, through divine intervention, to drive the Jamaat successfully and till his death in 1965, the budget of the Jamaat was over 1.2 million. Over 1.2 million rupees, from 5 rupees to 1.2 million, starting afresh all through. So I will end it here. I think that when I was preparing, I didn't take into account the time, and that is the reason why it had to end this way. I've left I have to leave something behind. Jazakumullahu khairan.
MashaAllah. Sahib, we are most grateful for your delivery. In fact, even if you had been given the time to prepare within, you would still have had the temptation of giving us a lot more information, as there's always plenty to say. Like you said yourself, everybody who delivers a topic on the Musleh-e-Maud will definitely look at it from a certain angle, but cannot look at it from all angles. So you are very much understood, and we are most grateful for the preparation and the delivery you have given to us. Because we have already used some of the time of the questions, we'll go straight to the question and answer session. Now, some of our members have already put in their questions on the chat page, and I would advise all others who have questions to ask and can actually type it out, to also type out their questions in the chat page of the Zoom platform, so that we'll handle them. if we are done with those questions, we have more time, we'll actually allow people to unmute themselves and ask their questions if there are any more. Perhaps through the questions, you would get to touch on some other aspects of his life, inshallah. So Mosab, if you would permit me, I'll read out the first question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. The first question says that the life of the second Khalifa was so phenomenal, inspirational, and a wonderful person. My question is this. Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmed radiallahu anhu married 7 wives. How did it get to 7 wives when the Holy Quran chapter 4 verse 4 has given us the permission for Muslims to marry up to 4 wives? And I will tie it up with the next questioner who says that, Assalamu alaikum, please, are we allowed to marry more than 4? So this is the question for you to start with.
Yes, so let me start with the second one. We are not allowed to marry more than 4. And even the 4, you need to fulfill certain conditions to marry up to 4. It's not just one you want. There are 2 conditions stipulated in the Holy Quran. One condition involves 4 conditions in itself, and the other one. So that is 4 in total. If you don't fulfill these conditions, you cannot be seen to be marrying more than 4. Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad radiallahu anhu, it's very commonly known that he married up to 7 wives. But this is because some of his wives died. He didn't marry all 7 at once. At a time, Huzur never had more than 4 wives. Okay, and the conditions under which he married some of his wives, if we know, we would applaud it. Because some of these women he married were women who were stranded, women whose situation was such that they needed somebody to bring them in. And so he married them. So that would be the short answer to that he didn't marry 7 at a time. The maximum number of wives he had at a time was 4. And all these wives he married fulfilled. I mean, the conditions the Quran stipulates that allows marrying up to 4 were all fulfilled in all these marriages. I think the first 2 questions done.
Yes, both they are well answered.
Jazakumullah.
And I believe from these marriages also came the 3rd and the 4th Khalifa, who are brothers. Alhamdulillah, and for that matter, the sons of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud radiallahu anhu. The next question, the next question, I think is related to perhaps the point you made about the early marriage. The questioner says, is it a fact that people of that region naturally had their physical faculties developed much faster than elsewhere?
Okay, should I respond?
Yes, please.
Okay, so yes, it's a fact that certain people, due to certain conditions, prevalent conditions, sometimes they are climate conditions, they make the physical body of the individual develop faster. Especially in the case of women, that they are around 12, 13, but they are matured enough and can safely be mothers, you know. So that is a fact. But the details of that I'll leave to the experts in that field to discuss. But it's a fact. Just like the case of Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha, you know, even the Prophet ﷺ married her. Before the Prophet ﷺ married her, she was already betrothed to another person, another young man in Mecca. So that means she was actually up to the age of marriage. So that is the reason why you find some of these things there. But I also mentioned in my submission earlier that sometimes some of these marriages they weren't actually as early as we think they are. Because even in the case of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud, as I mentioned, that he married in 1902 at the age of 13. Though the nikah was done in 1902, but I don't remember clearly, but I think the consummation, the rukhsati or walima, was done almost 2 years later. So he would be around 15 by then. You know, so that is how it's done. Sometimes the walima is done after 4, 5, 6 years and so on. So the nikah is done there. The nikah is not done today. Then the next day you do walima. No, sometimes the nikah is done for years before the walima is done. So when you put it into these contexts, it's easier to understand. But like you asked, physically, certain people develop faster. Even when you see sometimes in football, our footballers go with their football ages. And some of these people in Europe, in other parts of the world, they go with their real ages, but they still look bigger as far as size is concerned. They look bigger than some of our African players. So sometimes that's possible. That's true.
Indeed. Jazakumullah. And as it is important to also put in context that we probably should be aware that the laws that we find ourselves, that we find governing us in Ghana are not the same as the laws that existed then. So that in Ghana, there's a law that says that until you are 18, you cannot marry. Yet we are finding out the age of marriage was a bit less than 18, and you feel like something might have been wrong. Nothing. Because there are even countries currently whose ages of marriage are far less than 18, and there are some of them higher than 18. So it's an artificial construct based on the nature of the particular jurisdiction you find yourself. So that is perfectly the case. There's another question. I've noticed some persons have started raising their hands. We'll call them soon, but before them, I'll read out another question on the chat platform. Assalamu alaikum. Please, is there any verse in the Holy Quran that can be cited with regards to the prophecy of the Musleh-e-Maud?
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. So clearly, there isn't a verse in the Holy Quran that can be cited regarding that Musleh-e-Maud, a clear verse that you will find, unless, of course, you want to do a very long analysis, unless you want to do some serious interpretations. But there's no clear verse in the Holy Quran that is tied to Musleh-e-Maud.
That's right. Jazakumullah. Jazakumullah for that straightforward answer. If we had a lot of time, then you can then delve into analysis that may be able to make the relationships. Yeah. So I shall call, yes, the hand raised says, I think, Damango Zonal Kaid. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question very briefly in under 30 seconds.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is that I read that he was one of the founding members and the first president of the All Indian Kashmir Committee set up for the establishment of the civil rights of Kashmir Muslims.
Okay.
So how
that is correct.
How active was he in terms of politics or political side?
Inshallah. Jazakumullah for that question. Musa, you can go ahead.
Yes, the political contributions of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud are immense. Just a few days back, I was telling somebody that if the Palestinians had listened to the advice of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud, we wouldn't have an Israel in Palestine today, and there will not be any war in Palestine. Huzur spoke extensively about the politics of the world and made contributions. During his time, anywhere there were political issues, he made contributions, very valuable contributions as such. In the issue of Kashmir, Huzur was actually part of the founding members. Later on, when the opposition, the opponents of Jamaat, went across all borders in opposing the Jamaat and persecuting the Jamaat, they try to erase some of these important aspects of our history. But Huzur was actually one of the founding members of that. And he chaired it and made contributions as far as that is concerned. So I think this is enough. I just want to confirm.
Yes.
I just want to, yes. Instead of saying details.
Yes, indeed. I'm also, I think I read in the Fazli Umar that he was integral, perhaps one of the leading members that championed the civil rights when the Pakistan was being divided from India. And he was very instrumental in advising the Muslim leaders during this phase of the formation of Pakistan. So he's actually one of the founding members of Pakistan, if I understand that particular explanation. MashaAllah. Also, before we
actually,
continue.
I just wanted to say, it was actually under his guidance. It was the Jamaat that invited the founder of Pakistan, what was the name? Janah Ali.
Yes.
He was in London at the time. It was under the instruction of the second Khalifa that he was invited to where we now have the Fazl Mosque.
Yes.
Where Huzur stayed earlier, and convinced him to come and help in the struggle for the liberation of Pakistan, if you want to call it that. So it was he was actually the brain behind Pakistan.
That's right. MashaAllah. Jazakumullah. Before we go to any other question, if there is, please, is anybody speaking? Exactly. That's the person I wanted to call. Islam, Sina Ahmed was going to do that.
No. I just wanted to just buttress the same point that it's very important to note that this political things that we are talking about was part of the prophecy as well. It's not just something that he just made up, he concocted himself or whatever it is. It was part of it, and it was in the prophecy. And I believe, Hafif Sab can even shed more light on that as well. Jazakumullah.
MashaAllah. Yes. So even beyond your intervention of this particular question, I would invite you, before we finish the questions, to also say a few words to brothers. We are mostly members of the Majlis. Just a few words in 1 minute or so. But I'll ask one other question I found in the chat page before you could kindly do us that honor. So there's a question. Please, what is the relationship between Musleh-e-Maud Day celebration and worldly birthday celebration? So I think we understand the question in context. What's the difference? Because we are celebrating Musleh-e-Maud Day. And why do we discourage the celebration of things like birthdays? What's up?
Okay, so the Musleh-e-Maud Day is not the birthday of Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud. He was born on the 12th of January, 1886. 12th January, 1886. Sorry, 1889. Sorry. 12th January 1889. Okay. Yes. The prophecy was made 3 years earlier. 3 years earlier, on the 20th of February 1886. So there are two different dates. Okay. So we do not celebrate the birthday. In fact, celebration of birthday, even though it's not in the category of haram, the Khulafa have explained this, especially the fourth Khalifa and the current Khalifa. Fourth Khalifa was actually so much against it. He said it's a foolish thing. You know, Huzur used these words. There was no prophet who celebrated birthday. That means it is not important, you know. But Huzur has taken rather a softer stance. That is not to say that as Khalifa Masih Rabi said, celebrating is haram. No, he just says it's a useless thing. Huzur, the current Khalifa, has said that celebrating birthday, even though it's not necessarily an evil thing, but when you celebrate it the Islamic way. For example, if it's your birthday and you decide to do tahajjud, that is fair enough. Your birthday, you decide to share something, to give some sadaqah, prepare some food and share with poor people, and then pray to Allah that your years ahead are more prosperous. It's a good thing, but just the birthday as is traditional among people, that has no importance at all in Islam. It's just a useless thing. I hope that question is also answered.
Yes, it's pretty much answered. I think to, like you said, to put them together, essentially what both the Khalifa has said and what the current Khalifa has said, it suggests that if you don't celebrate a birthday, it doesn't matter. But if you think you want to do something to commemorate your birthday, do something that concerns faith, Islamic, so that ordinarily birthdays as they are celebrated by the worldly people are vain, they are useless. They don't make any sense, particularly when those of us who are here are more engrossed with taking photos and putting them on social media so that we can get people to tell us all sorts of things. Those are not the things that we are required to do. We are actually required to rather focus on prayers. Indeed, recently I felt very bad. It was quite an indictment on many, if not most of us, when we learned that our beloved Huzur Ayadahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz has said that the difficulties, indeed, the pain that our brothers are going through by way of persecution, he has gotten the revelation from Allah that if we had all focused our prayers on behalf of Jamaat against persecution, within 3 days, Allah would have cleared all this persecution against us. It only tells us that perhaps the world of Ahmadiyya needs to set up again, particularly we the youth, and focus and concentrate on what matters and not making social media presence about our private lives. So I think I'll keep it here, Musa, and call on our brother, our senior brother, Ahmed Osufanadu, to make just a few remarks to us. If there is any last question within 5 minutes, we can take that before I close the meeting, inshallah. Senior, assalamu alaikum, sir.
Well, Islam to love. I know we're both in KNUST, but that doesn't mean I'm your senior. Jazakumullah for the honor that I should say some few words. I guess I would just add one tiny bit, and that is we celebrate Musleh-e-Maud for a particular reason. It's only to understand what he has done and for us to put ourselves in a proper perspective. How can we also be like him? That is all it's all about. Yes, Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya, he was the founder of Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya, and for you to know, for about the first 10 years of Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya, he was actually the Sadr Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya. Though he was quite old, he was still the Sadr of that. Tells you how important he saw the youth and how, and I think you started it very well. But the easy way to really try to connect to Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud is to listen to the Khalifatul Masih. It's as simple as that. Just make it a must. I know we've all got the phones, we've got the gadgets and whatever it is. Just make it a must that I need to listen to the Khalifatul Masih. This is all my message. And if we are all going to listen to the Khalifatul Masih, then inshallah, we will all get to that destination that we're all looking for. Just make it your routine that until I move from A to B, my roadmap or my navigator is going to be the Khalifatul Masih. What does a Khalifatul Masih? So any juncture in your life, this is what I've got for the Khuddam. Any juncture in your life, when you're about to take any step, just ask yourself, what does the Khalifatul Masih want me to do? And the only reason why I'm saying this is that is the only difference between us and everyone else. That is one thing you all need to know now. That is the only difference between us and everyone else. If anyone should ask me, what is the most important thing that you should give as a gift to anyone, I say Khalifatul Masih. Because everyone else have, listen, am I still audible here? You hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Yes, the Nana Ahmadis even do prayers even at times more than us. They read the Quran. Look at them, they have got so many hufas, Hafiz and whatever you want to call them, right? But there's something very unique about the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and that is the leadership, and that is invested in the Khalifatul Masih. Until and unless you align yourself with the Khalifatul Masih and make him your roadmap in everything that you are doing in your life, you never ever be able to see that beauty of the Jamaat and that kind of beauty that we have in the Almighty Allah. So this is all I've got for you, my dear brothers. That's we should all cling on to the Khalifatul Masih. You've got MTA, you've got your phones, and you can just go on YouTube, wherever, listen to him, and always ask yourself, if I'm moving from A to B, what does the Khalifatul Masih want me to do in that process? And if we happen to do that, that is the only point when you say you'll be pleasing the Almighty Allah, and that will make us rise to that level of what as a Muslim requires of us. May Allah enable us to do so. Amin. Jazakumullah.
Amin, my brother. We are grateful. Musa, please, I give you another minute, 1 minute to say your final words to us. Then we close, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khairan. What I would just like to say is that during the Khilafat of the Khalifatul Masih Awal, we noticed an extraordinary example of obedience in Hazrat Musleh-e-Maud, to the Khalifa. He obeyed him. You just give me 1 minute. I won't be able to say much. But the manner in which he obeyed the first Khalifa itself, there is so much in that for us to learn. And I think that it is because of this obedience that, it's part of it, that Allah blessed him immensely. It is to the extent that when he went to Hajj during the Khilafat of the first Khalifa, he knew very clearly that the Prophet ﷺ had forbidden us from praying behind non-Ahmadis. But one of the companions he went with said that he had heard as Khalifatul Masih Awal say that is different when you go for Hajj. At Hajj, you could pray behind whoever is Imam Kaaba. Just because he heard that the Khalifa had said that, he prayed behind the Imam Kaaba, but then went back to his room and prayed a precautionary prayer, just in case. And then when he went back, he asked Huzur. Huzur said, no, I never said that. He said, Alhamdulillah, that I offered a precautionary. But once he heard that the Khalifa had said that, he would not relent. He would do it, even if he had a doubt, and then ask for clarification later. So there is an example in that too for us to emulate, and may Allah enable us to do so.
Assalamu alaikum. I think Sadr Saab's mic is off. Kindly prompt him.
Yeah, Jazakumullah. Hafiz Saab, yes, it was off and I was speaking to myself. Jazakumullah. So I was thanking Moldi Hafiz Saab for sharing with us so much valuable knowledge and also for spending time with us. I'm very grateful for him. We are requesting that the organizers of the program can now put the link to the text on the chat platform on this page here, on the Zoom platform, and also subsequently on all other Majlis platforms, including WhatsApp. So members have up till 9 p.m. to put in their answers for us to record the highest score. And inshallah, we shall present an award to the winner at our next national Ijtima, inshallah. Mutab, I would just like to make a few remarks on this program by restating and emphasizing the comments made by our elder brother, Ahmed Osukonadu-Saad. It is something I've heard from him many times, and I've held on to it. And it is that in everything you want to do or you do, ask, what does the Khalifa say about this? In everything. And we ought not to be lazy about it. In fact, the risk is that we get carried away by our friends and colleagues by the way they do things. We forget we are Ahmadis. My brother, Hanif Sam Kelson, who was Naib Sadr of the Majlis, kept reminding Khuddam all the time that Khuddam should make friends with other Ahmadi Muslims and not make friends with others who are not Ahmadi Muslims, so that they can influence themselves positively. This also means, by necessary implication, that we should make friends with good Ahmadis and not those who lead us astray. I would want to emphasize the point that Brother Ahmed also made about obedience to what the Khalifa says, by telling members of the Majlis that we are failing in the direct instruction of the Khalifa, which was given to members of Majlis Khuddam-ul-Ahmadiyya Ghana since 2011-12 thereabouts. It was during the time of Sadr Al-Hajj Abbas bin Said Wilson that we received a letter from our beloved Huzur indicating that we give him monthly updates on the tarbiyat activities of members of the Majlis. Hence the development of the individual tarbiyat assessment program, which is nicknamed Salat Assessment, because it's not only Salat, it's comprehensive tarbiyat assessment. Many people have asked the question, but who is Huzur to mark my Salat? And I have prayed for these people for years, and I always touch on this because it was most unfortunate comments and questions we picked up from certain parts of the country. And I always told them that if you do not know the purpose of the Khalifa, then you can ask this question. The simple answer is that we claim he's our spiritual leader. So if our own biological fathers at home can even beat us to get up and go and pray, come and inquire from us, have you prayed Chanda, have you prayed today? How much more the Khalifa of the time, who is your spiritual father and the leader of all believers, he has asked from us. I'm entreating all Ahmadi Muslims, in fact, all Khuddam of Ghana, that let us obey this instruction. Let us pray fervently for ourselves and for the Khalifa. Brother Jawad Hammond will always say, if you do not encounter that moment in your life where you realize and turn around, that's your Laylatul Qadr day of your own self, then you will be lost for very long. Let all Majlis members today, in commemorating Jalsa Musleh-e-Maud's, as it were, a revelation or prophecy, let's remember that he was somebody who obeyed all instructions of Khilafat, as Movie said in the last part. So let's also obey the instruction of our beloved Khalifa and be guided by his teaching. All his sermons, we ought to listen. So I will not belabor. I will try to conclude at this juncture by reiterating that let's answer the questions on the platform. They have been put on the platform. If you do not get it from here, go to your Khuddam platform and then follow up and answer the questions, inshallah. I'm grateful to the Tarbiyat office, the Ta'alim office, and their supervisor in the person of the Muawin Sadr, Jawad Ahmed. I'm grateful to my colleagues, National AMLA members, including the Naibin Sadran. I'm grateful, in fact, to the speaker and all the persons who delivered to us, our elder brother, Senior Ahmed Osukanadu, for taking time to participate in this. All members who are not members of the Majlis but have found it useful to participate, we are very grateful to you, and we congratulate you for benefiting with us in this blessed program. Jazakumullah, Ahsan al-Jaza. So at this juncture, I would want to, without delaying, invite the officer in charge of Tarbiyat, Northern Sector, and also the movie in charge of Kumasi North Zone, in the person of Mulvi Hafiz Nasim Nyame, Hafiz Nasim Ahmed Nyame, to give us a closing prayer to end the program. Jazakumullah. Alaikum salam.
Please, can we all join me? Silent closing prayer. I was below on Shaitan with Bismillah. أتنا في الدنيا حسنة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار اللهم آمين.
Ameen. Jazakumullah Musab. We are grateful to everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Ahmed Mesa side, please. You've gotten the host permission, so end the meeting for us.
Please, let's pray.
We are done praying. Just click end, and then the meeting will end.
I'm supposed to end it. Okay.
Oh no, another prayer. Just lead us here. Let's do another one. Set this up is going. Let's do another one.
Why do you want to end the meeting?
Officer, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Where will you power in a casa now?
W.
Asafo Rahman.
Oh, hey, Asa. Asa,
Alhamdulillah.
Hey, Musa. Asa, what are we?
Yami Adam. Yamaka sawa abu ni chirain.
Mashallah.
I'm at the pastor and the meeting in my hand. Aha,